What's up, guys? Welcome to the Financial Dad Podcast. This is Gus
and JC.
And thank you for being here today. What are we going to talk about?
Let's get this show started.
Yeah. So today we're going to just run through some hot topics of what we feel are hot topics in today's world. Kind of play off last episode, and hopefully we get to the point where you guys are calling in and sending us some emails, sending us some questions, and we can kind of go over many things that are affecting people today, or just maybe just have a question on how to clear something up. So I will say this. With me having the kids that I do, I've learned this. I don't really believe in no's.
There's five
kids.
Too many.
And this is one of them. But you see a lot of like financial advisors and everything, what they're doing, and I was talking about and thinking about this earlier, is that they all have something that they're trying to sell you. But what if I'm not trying to sell you? What if it's just more of education and then you make a choice? And so that's kind of like what our forum is about, is just, it's really, finances are very, very simple. It's complicated by there's so many rules and so many you should or shouldn't do's. That's what we're trying to clear up.
Social media.
Yep, and you're coming from, the reason why I really love doing this with my daughter is because you'll hear it from a 48-year-old who has made their mistakes, and you'll hear it from a 19-year-old who is just on the cusp of like really starting. So it's like a good dynamic there of what can you do to kind of clean up your understanding of it all and make it so uncomplicated where it's just not even it's just part of your life and it's not really a drag. So you got anything?
I think that's why it seems so complicated to people my age, because they're not used to people simplifying it. Like, it's just taken from 0 to 10.
Well, you don't remember. Everybody thinks that, that this is, and it used to not be this way. It's always been this way. Parents don't talk to kids because maybe parents are just kind of, they're just discouraged by maybe they don't know and the mistakes that they've made. And it's just really not mistakes. I think the pressure. So my dad recently retired and from farming. And so I noticed this like in the first year of his retirement, he was putting so much pressure on himself, even at 70 years old, to provide and produce. And I was like, well, if my dad's feeling this at 70 years old, what is it like for a 30-year-old? What is it like for a 19-year-old? What is it like for a 50-year-old? And it all comes back to finances. I think it's got a lot to do with people just don't know.
Isn't that like the number one like problem in marriages is finances and like relationships and stuff?
Well, people say you'll get different answers there. So I don't think that like saying that it's like the number one thing is a tough thing. But I would say that communication about those things, and I think that not saying no to yourself, as well as not having a plan, even if it's just just not even a real plan.
What do you mean by that?
How about telling yourself what you're not going to do and then see that through? You don't even have to have a plan. Just don't do those things. And so there's always certain things that you can do, but I guess I try to look at the podcast as like, I look at things as like more of like a pragmatic thing, like practical. Mm-hmm. And so in the things that I have been through, the mistakes I've made as a parent, and most of my mistakes that came as a parent was because, you want to provide, and provide takes money. Mm-hmm. And so if provisions cost money, then that's where a lot of family stress comes from. And I think that men in general will hide that. Men are always, I can't say men and women, I think we're very hopeful that the next day will be a better day. And that's impossible without a plan, as well as communication.
And why is that?
Because if you don't communicate, you're in the fight yourself. And other people don't even know that you're in the fight.
It's like trying to fight a wall.
Yeah, as well as the people don't even know that you're in the fight. I think anybody can smile even in bad times. Mm-hmm. And so, but is it's like when you and I were eating lunch today, and I said it's going to be funny whenever you, at 19 years old, get to the point where you're paying your own bills. But what if I never told you what your bills were, and you just showed up at the house one day with a brand new car, $500 a month car payment, if you can even get a $500.
How much money to save.
Well, I mean, let's just say it was $500. You just looked at how much money you were making, and a car payment was $500, and I never communicated with you about your bills. Like, what does it take to make JC run? Whose fault is that?
Yours.
It's mine. This is where people fail. Is, we talked about this last time, the number one thing that you can do without a doubt is be brutally honest with yourself and be brutally honest with a friend. I don't think it's important.
Because you have that person holding you accountable.
Well,
if they're a good friend.
I don't think it starts with accountability. I think it starts with transparency. And so just going to a friend and say, listen, man, I don't know what I'm doing, but this is what I've done. And I don't like the way it feels anymore. I'm kind of lost. And maybe that person can look at you, help you look in the mirror and say, financially,
something's got to change.
Something's got to go. Something's got to go.
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot of money to live. And a lot of money is a relative statement. That's why, and I'll touch on a couple of things. You'll see so much stuff on social media. If I could give my content away for free, just so I wouldn't have to hear somebody say I'm trying to sell them something. So if you take this, I tell all my clients this, most of them, I don't need your business.
Yeah.
I have busted my ass.
He said it so many times.
Yeah, I have busted my ass for 20 years building my business. I don't need your business, but I want it, but I don't want it so bad that I'm not going to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Or be transparent, and then you make the decision. Somebody else can go, shoot you a line, but it's not going to be me.
Yeah.
And so I think that so many people are scared to look themselves in the mirror and say, I fucked up. That's it. I screwed up. But I can promise you this, is that nobody's coming for you. Nobody's going to kill you. I tell you that all the time. Nobody's going to kill you.
But no one's going to do it for you either.
Which is, I wonder if that's even harder than looking in the mirror and saying the financial mistakes that I have made. Okay, so the government's not coming to kill me. My wife's not going to kill me, or my dad's not going to kill me. Nobody is coming to kill me. And so whenever you look at it from that viewpoint, which is the harshest punishment, is death.
Yeah.
So if you say, for me, that's how I look at it. Nobody is coming to get me or save me. So
sink or swim.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's one. So, like a 19-year-old, and like I used that a while ago, is like if nobody ever talked to you about school loans. So you're very fortunate because I talked to you about those things. I talked to you about interest. I talked to you about taxes. I talked to you about, so you file your own taxes. I help you do them, but I show you what those are and what those mean, and because it's important.
Yeah. Because I'd never know what it was. We don't learn that in school.
Well, no, because school is all theory. School is not practical. So all education is basically theory. Somebody is teaching you something that they're teaching out of a book.
Yeah.
But it is education. It's not, but you have to look at it from a non-pragmatic view. It may not have anything to do with your life, but if you can't, it's like whenever we went to Andy Elliott's. So I took JC with me to Andy Elliott's in January. And this was the the multitude of things that we took away from there was this. How can you learn how to be an entrepreneur if you can't be an intrapreneur? So how can you go out and do everything that you want to do if you cannot do what you want to do inside of another company and be the best person inside of that company?
And learn.
And so, and you can't. So it goes back to education is more about effort. doing the things that you don't want to do. Like name a class that you don't like, or that you think has no bearing on your future.
Art
or biology. You don't like
art
blood.
appreciation.
Art appreciation. But one of it doesn't. You don't like it right now.
No.
But one of these days you may like it, art, and you will remember this class. But if life and finances and everything was all about you doing only what you'd like to do, that means that you can't make it through the hard stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's
because
why
you always tell me that college you're showing that you can stay on track for 4 years and put effort in and
yes,
come out of it.
As much as I hate to say this, and I did terrible in college, I think it's because I put myself in such a hole in like the first 1 or 2 years that I spent the next 2.5, 3 years digging myself out. But in digging myself out, I figured out that I like the challenges of digging holes. The problem is that digging yourself out, the same thing with debt. It takes you 1 year to get out, to get in it, because, and then 5 years to get out of it. So for example, I started a credit card for you. This is real world stuff right here. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen, but this was the thing. So when JC was 16, I put her on a credit card of mine, which I think is super important for a parent to do for a kid. Now, the kid doesn't get a credit card, but you were 16.
And what are the benefits of that?
Well,
like doing it that early.
It is because it's easy, it's free, doesn't cost anything, and it gets you prepared for that, for turning 18. Whenever, the earlier that you can create a credit score and talk to people about it. So if I didn't tell you.
I have a better credit score than he does.
I doubt that. I doubt that. But I doubt that.
That's what you told me.
At that age. Yeah, at that age. So, but a credit score is something that if you cannot protect your credit score, it's because people are listening to this online and say, oh, well, you don't need credit. You can go do this. You can go do this. That is not true. You will need credit your entire life because it's a baseline of you being able to pay your bills. That's all it is. That's all you being able to manage your own finances. That's all it is.
Yeah.
If I paid you $1 and you spend $1.15, can you manage finances? No. You're in debt 15 cents plus interest to somebody. And so that's why I said last time, the new slave master, and this is, I don't know if that's I'm sure that'll be a triggering word to somebody, but the new slave master is interest. As well, partially it's the government. And so because they, I always use the word they, and then I always add, well, who is they? Anyone that you...
Who's coming after us?
Yeah. Anyone that you are depending on is the they. And especially in the financial world, if you are waiting on the first of the month for something, then you are dependent on somebody.
And how do you get yourself out of that dependency?
Education. Education, and people get all twisted up about the word education. So I'm a firm believer in education in today's world is free. It is super free.
You're talking about school or learning?
Forget about school.
Okay.
If you told me today that you didn't want to go to college, and you said, hey, Dad, I'm thinking about dropping out of college, but I'm very interested in finances, I would say, okay, cool. Study this. You can get it from YouTube. You can get it from this. You have to be very, very careful about who you are talking to about finances.
Why is that?
Because if they're trying to sell you something, then they're only going to be selling what they can sell. So for me, I can sell across the spectrum. And yeah, of course, insurance and finance is what I do. And so financial is what I do. There's a big difference between finances and financial. So finance is anything that you like give people a loan for.
Okay.
Financial is anything that people can earn interest on.
Okay.
But people don't do that for free. Knowledge is not free. Education is not free. And so even YouTube is not free because it takes you have to take the time to go learn it. That's not free. It's costing you something. It may cost you not being able to go out with your friends. It may cost you not being able to go to a concert or go to sleep. It's costing you something. And so, but in the world of finances, going back to the credit score. So if you cannot manage your credit, then how can you manage anything else?
You can.
But it's also, you have to have somebody tell you that your credit score is important. There's too many people out here that are, well, a credit score is important until there is a new system put in place where credit is not important. And so if you, in the old days where people, so like old days, I'm talking about like a couple hundred years ago.
Yeah.
If you went to a restaurant or a place that served food or alcohol, you had a tab. If you didn't pay your tab, what was going to happen? They're not going to serve you. They're not going to serve you. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's no different.
So for someone who has a very low credit score, how do you get out of that?
Well, that's probably a whole nother podcast, but I think the answer is not pretty. If you have a low credit score, then there's a reason why you have a low credit score.
Yeah.
You need to find out that reason first. The majority of the time, it has something to do with your inability to have paid something. Whether
it's like
it
paying
was
off a credit card, paying off a car.
medical bills, you're using your credit card to live. And so that's another mistake that people make is that. But repairing of credit is very simple. People think that they have to go hire somebody to do that, and you really don't. It just takes time. But there are plenty of places that you can go to. But I think that people sell themselves as professionals in an environment when all it is that now sometimes it's easier to pay somebody else to do it, especially like if you don't have the time to do it. Mm-hmm. But I think that the repairing of credit is pretty simple. It just takes time. For example, it took me 7 years to repair my credit. 7 years. And I had to be, and even then, when I started to repair my credit, the issue with them is I still had to then, so repairing it doesn't mean that the banks still love you. Mm-hmm. So repairing just means that you got back to a baseline of being able to start to prove. That's all that means.
And then the second you mess up, you're back in the hole again.
Well, all it takes is one time.
Yeah.
You know, all it takes is one time, and then because that is like that's the baseline for your ability to be able to buy anything, especially real estate, is your home or anything is your credit score. And so, and what people don't understand is that the lower your credit score, the higher your interest rate. And the interest rate is basically...
So interest rates can vary depending on...
Absolutely.
I didn't know that.
100%. Yeah. There is... I'm not going to get too much in it because I don't know the real...
logistics.
There is some sort of algorithm in the world, I believe, where whenever you go to buy something, they pull your credit. And in that credit, they also know they probably are able to pull your debts that you have. And if you have certain things on your credit, then they know that they can force you to take a higher payment because of what they see on the credit card. Or the
I've
credit
also
statement.
seen things where, like, let's say someone's going to buy a car and they have a house loan and another type of loan. They'll pull their credit report, but they won't take into account what they're currently paying for those things. So then they'll just tell them that they can't afford it when they really can't. I
think that everything but real estate, so your ability to buy a car is totally based on your credit score. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. If you were buying a vehicle through your personal name. It's all based on a credit score.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so if you ever notice that, and of course this is totally off subject, but if you go in there, you go into a dealership and you say that you're looking at a 4Runner and it's 50 grand. Well, obviously, quick calculation, you divide $50,000 by 60 months, 72 months, or 84 months. Well, the majority, so they're going to divide it by 84 and get it down to the lowest payment they can. So I don't know what 50,000 divided by 84, which is 8 years, 7 years. And so, but when you divide that out, you add, okay, well, it becomes a sales game, but your credit score determines what your interest rate is on things like vehicles. So that's a big deal where I see in the financial world that people don't understand that in my world, because I talk to thousands of people. Let's say I talk to 1,000 people a year. The majority of the time, from all ages, I would say from like 25 right on up to 70, I would say the large majority of them don't understand interest. They just don't understand it. They understand want. They don't understand interest. They understand I deserve, but they don't understand interest. And interest, and also being under the thumb of somebody. And what I mean by being under the thumb of somebody in the financial world is this. If you have to make a payment, you're under somebody's thumb.
Yeah.
If you put yourself...
Because if you don't make that payment, then they're going to find you.
Well, the majority of people will do everything that they can to make a payment, even if they have to steal from something else to make it. But what they don't understand, and we're talking about...
And that's where living off a credit card comes from as well.
Well, it could be living off a credit card. It could be that they're borrowing from... And this is what I see, and this goes back to the financial world of not setting or having a plan. So I was telling somebody earlier today, whenever I was 20, so I graduated from college when I was 22 or 23. In the first 6 months that I lived here, I saw a financial class in, I believe it was the newspaper, where a guy named Mitch Jones.
No one uses those anymore.
A guy named Mitch Jones was teaching a one night a week on Wednesdays. I remember it was like $45 for like 8 weeks. And a buddy of mine, we took that class every Wednesday night, and it was about, that was whenever this guy was building his business. So he was trying to bring on clients. And the takeaways that I learned from that in the financial world are, if you can't save $100 for a year, every month for a year, how can you save $1,000 a month? How can you save $25? You can't. And so it is impossible.
It's like making your bed 5 out of 7 days of the week.
Yeah. It's making a decision at some point, I think, and I can only answer for men. You'll have to answer for what you have heard, like through for women. But I think with men, I think it's what kills men. I think bad financial decisions and then not admitting what they have done is the number one killer of men, is disappointment in their financial decisions.
I think for women, it's probably depending on someone else to know that for them, instead of taking the time to learn it themselves, which is changing a lot now. There's more women like going out there trying to learn these things, but most people just want to depend on someone else to know this and then just work and someone else handle the finances.
Well, I said this to my wife yesterday, is this, and I'm sure I'll catch a lot of flack for this. Women have no choice now to go out and learn it.
Yeah.
Because they're so disappointed that the person that they are with doesn't know it.
Yeah.
And I'll take up for men whenever I say this, is because men like to learn from other men. We are pack animals.
Yeah.
We learn how to hunt. We learn how to provide from watching our fathers. If you did not have that type of relationship, then where do you learn it from? And you don't. So you're hunting and pecking in the dark, trying to figure out how to provide for this for yourself. And then maybe you have a spouse, and then maybe you add even something as simple as a dog. Mm-hmm. Well, now you have that $100 a month obligation. Where does that money come from?
Yeah.
And so, and then you add, okay, well, the next logical choice is a car or vacations or this or that. And I think that I believe that it's because nobody tells people the truth. It's not transparent, because that goes like where I said that there are no no's. Mm-hmm. So if I tell you all the variables, and I like yesterday, you asked me if you could go do something tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay, and I give you all the variables, and like one or two. And then it's your decision if you go. And the consequences of you going and consequences can be good or bad. It doesn't always have to be bad. But if you go, you don't get paid.
Yeah.
If you go, the other things that you were responsible for get pushed back behind. So those are logical things that nobody ever tells me. And everything is just free. You want a new car, 2% interest. You want this credit card? Well, cool, sign up for it. You want to go on vacation? Oh, well, you deserve it. You know, there's nobody talks to people about consequences and lays out, like the new thing right now is student loans. Mm-hmm. If somebody told you that you could borrow $100,000 to go to school for a year,
okay,
or go to school, finish your great college education, and you don't owe a payment on this until you graduate, 6 months after you graduate, are you really thinking about the cost of that $100,000?
While I'm in college?
No. No, absolutely not. That is something that's so far off you don't even think about it.
I probably forgot I even took the loan.
Exactly. But how did your life change in those 5 years? So you went from 19 to almost 26. Mm-hmm. So now you're 26 years old and you've got a great job, but nobody ever broke down that job for you. Nobody ever showed you, okay, you're making $100,000 a year, which is almost baseline in today's world. Mm-hmm. The $100,000 is the new $70,000 from 10 years ago. $100,000 today is the $100,000 is the $50,000 from 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so that's with inflation. Nobody talks to people about inflation. Nobody talks to people about anything. And I think it really comes from just disappointment. And as well as people don't want people to know. So I heard this the other day. I can't really remember who said this, but I read this where it says, a humble man is a greedy man.
Why is that?
Well, a humble man knows things. People think he's humble because he doesn't go out there and pat himself on the back or anything.
Show off.
Yeah, he doesn't show off.
Yeah.
But if a humble man who is doing well for himself doesn't spread his knowledge that he knows about how he has able to become, not just if he's a humble, well-off man, a man that never speaks about his trials and tribulations and how he overcome those, he's really a greedy man. And so you have to find people who will be, and never take advice from people who have not done it.
Yeah.
I always use this with my clients because I talk with a lot of people about, because insurance, if you can ask 10 different guys, 5 different guys, what is the best vehicle to go buy? And you'll get 5 different answers. So that's, when it comes to finances, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. But for the majority, going back to the financial, I believe that the majority of financial mistakes that are made could be easily eliminated.
How?
Asking somebody.
But what if you don't know who to ask?
But you cannot ask the person that's trying to sell it.
Or who hasn't done it.
Or who hasn't done it. Here's what
so
you're
you need
going
to ask the person who knows what they're talking about.
So, for example, say that I was not in your life.
Okay.
And your mom's not in your life.
Okay.
What do you need? As a 19-year-old, what do you need? A 19-year-old's in college. What do you need?
car,
Okay.
place to live, food,
Okay.
textbooks,
Okay.
clothes.
Okay. And then probably some extra money.
Yeah.
So your choices are this. That in itself, with a college education, probably costs, for your college, probably costs you 50 grand a year.
Okay.
All of that costs you probably 50 grand a year.
Okay.
That includes college.
Okay.
And so, but it probably takes $50,000 a year to run, maybe not that much, say $30,000 to $50,000 a year to run you. Let's take the low. Let's say 30 grand.
Okay.
So that is what, $2,500 a month is what it takes to run JC. Where does that money come from?
I guess I'd have to work.
Okay, so $2,500 a month is about $3,500 so $3,500 is $40,000 a year. That's a full-time job. How you can go to school?
Figure it out.
No,
I'd have to. I wouldn't have a choice.
That's not an answer.
So then I'd have to get it.
Figuring out is a default statement from people who really don't have an answer. Anytime somebody tells you, oh, well, I'm going to figure it out, all they're doing is just, they're dismissing you from really saying anything. So figuring it out.
So then I would have to make
It's not
a
an
plan
answer.
about how to come up with that money.
Well, your choices are going to be to work or borrow the money, like
Okay.
a school loan. And so if nobody ever breaks it down, just like I told you, then what happens when you take that school loan and now you're 26? Now you got a $100,000 a year job and now you're paying a school loan back at 6% interest, but nobody ever told you what the interest is. Nobody ever told you what the payment was. And nobody ever told you anything about how long that payment lasts. So imagine having a $1,000 school loan payment for 20 years or 10 years or 15 years. But it's all relative. I mean, if you're making $300,000 a year, a $1,000 payment doesn't really sound like a lot,
Yeah.
right? But it's all relative. And so in the financial world, the minimum education that a person should have should always be based off of where they are right then, not where they're going to be, not where they think that they're going to be, because all of that is speculation. It is theory. So if I told you, if you said, hey, when you graduate from college, right, I believe that you're going to be making this much, right? Then I broke that down for you. Number one, nobody's ever telling people that, how much money is something going to make. For example, you graduate with an art degree. Well, a lot of people do that. You can't laugh.
No,
But a lot of
I didn't
people
mean
do
it like
that. You're laughing because I've talked to you about that. But there are plenty of good people out there with art degrees. The problem is, how do they survive?
Yeah.
And I believe that unfortunately what happens is, in order for them to survive, they have to then do things that if they'd have really thought about it 4 or 5 years before, they probably would not have gotten an art degree unless they just really loved it.
What's your opinion on parents or just anyone telling kids to go to school for what they love instead of something that they'll actually be able to use, like to get a good job?
I think the parents love their kids so much that they're not being realistic. I think that is the worst thing that I could tell you is to go to school for what you love. Number one, I was thinking about this yesterday. If you were sending your kids to college for them to grow up, that is a financial mistake on a parent. Because if you spent that kid's 11th grade year and 12th grade year,
Especially if you didn't talk to them about anything.
Well, most parents that send their kids to college to grow up, they're not grown up themselves. They are not financially responsible. Everything comes back to finances. You cannot survive without finances.
No.
You cannot survive without money. And the people that say that they can survive, that money doesn't mean anything, they are not responsible for other people. In fact, it was like, if we ever do a podcast where this comes from my pragmatic dad, because managing children is a job. It is an absolute job.
Yeah.
And so
You
I don't
got
care if
5
it's
of
one
them.
kid or if it's 5 kids. You're managing 5 different people, 5 different personalities, 5 different ages, 5 different wants, needs, as well, and then you're trying to manage your own self. And so, and a lot of people don't understand that, but then going back, so flipping, if you send a kid to college hoping that they will figure life out, you have failed as a parent. That's strong language, but it is absolutely true, because the majority of the time they will not do well in college because you didn't teach them anything. They might also take classes that have nothing to do with anything. Now, yeah, a lot of parents will say this, which is bad financial, is this: well, you'll figure out what you want to do in college. No, dude, that is crazy. I know that my daughter does not like medical.
Yeah,
I know that you wanted to be you wanted to be a veterinarian when you were
like
4 or 5
Yeah.
years old. What if I'd have just kept pushing that, and I just kept, no, I am not. You need to go down the path of what you like, and if there's many different paths, you can probably eliminate 3 or 4 of them.
So you're saying go down a path of stuff that you like, but still something that will be useful.
Well, you have to provide value. Everybody talks about value now. So you need to understand that there will be if you want to be a value person. Now, there's some people, and this is fine, some people just want to be married. Some people just want to be married. Some people want to have a family immediately, like out of college, out of high school. But if you take away all the people that put themselves in a bad spot where they didn't have a choice, that's who we're talking about right now. We're talking about people who are, hey, I want to go to college. Okay, eliminate all the things that you don't like on a sheet of paper. Eliminate all the degrees that you don't like. So let's just say it was the college that you go to now, right? And you put 30 degrees. You just wrote the top 30 degrees that people graduate from this university, right? And then you eliminate all the ones that you don't like. So the college of this, the college of nursing, the college, medical, this, all of these things, and now you narrow it down to the 10 things, and then you're starting to develop a plan. And so I think that having a plan eliminates the majority, can't put a percentage on it, but it will eliminate the majority of all people's problems.
If not, then you're just flopping around.
Well, the majority of the people that you know are just flopping around. They're just flopping around financially.
Yeah.
And they put themselves in positions so whenever it is time to do something, they are unprepared.
Yeah.
They are unprepared. And here, you hear this a lot. A man dies whenever he's 40, but they don't bury him until he's 80. You understand that? And so...
That would be gross.
Well, it's not literal. It is basically, I guess you would call that maybe an analogy. Is that where all the hopes and the dreams that a person had, right? From what they wanted to do in high school, what they thought about, what they obsessed about, and then they went to college. And then the real world hits them in the face at 25, 30 years old, and there was no plan. Nobody talked to them. And then they lost hope. And then they're on that grind of maybe they have like a 40 to 50 hour a week job. And I know a lot of people that are happy in that job, but I know more people that are not. Yeah. Especially men and or women. I'm not a woman, so I can't speak for women. But let's just say you're grinding. And then at 35 years old, you look back and you say, damn, where is that guy? Where's that guy that at 25 years old, I really wanted to do this? It's because somewhere in there, he put himself in so much financial strain that at 40 years old, he's dead inside. He's dead. And I've been through it. Yeah. I have been through it. I feel like that feeling is like a debt. It's like a huge debt that can never get repaid until you look yourself in the mirror and you talk to someone and you acknowledge that it's there, and then you make a plan.
Yeah. I saw something the other day, And it was like, imagine on your deathbed, you have 10 people standing around you, like looking over you. And every single one of them represents a dream that you had that you never made a plan for, never took over anything. And you're trying to make up for all of that with those people,
Sure.
AKA your dreams, on your deathbed.
Sure. That's a tough one. If I had a Bradley bomb, I'd be pressing the bomb. But I think a lot of people don't look at it. Well, I think it is a failure. So the people that mean the most in my life that are currently living are, of course, my circle. I believe in circles. We've talked about circles
all of my life.
All of our life. And so I'll do a little side note here, and I'll say, JC and I have not always had the best relationship. There was a lot of conflict there from the time she was probably, and it was external conflict that we did not even know was there.
14 to 18.
Yeah, and probably even before that. And I believe that, and I'm sure that there are a lot of dads out there that have a lot of conflict with their kids. The target audience for like the Financial Dad podcast are dads, but it's also dads who want to know that how do I talk to my kids about finances?
Yeah.
And I think the way that you talk to your kids about finances are you educate yourself and you have to admit to yourself some failures. You have to, I think it's a transparency that I have had to say to my wife. I've had to say it to some really good friends of mine, and I think that once you go down that road, a lot of the fourth place debt that you feeling of debt that you have on yourself lifts off, and then you have a clear path to figuring out a plan that then takes more time. So I think that's where a lot of people believe it's like a diet. If you're 50 pounds if you're 50 pounds overweight, that feels like that is such an obstacle. But I believe that all of this, I believe that a lot of it comes from people just don't know what to do when it comes to finances.
But you have to start somewhere.
They don't even know where to start. That's the problem.
Yeah.
They don't even, whenever, I think that is a logical answer that comes from someone who has had somebody talking to them.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you got to start somewhere. But where is that start line? What is that start line? And then you start going out and you start asking people, what should they do? Well, they're going to tell you.
Which is the worst thing you can do.
It is the worst thing that you should do. It is the absolute worst thing that you can do. It's like
me going to all of my friends, asking them what to do about a situation.
So financial wise, I think that who you get your advice from is important. I think that having too many choices, you'll never make a choice. I would say that financial wise, you need to have like a 3-pronged plan. That's it. Start super simple and then educate yourself about those 3 things.
Yeah.
And that's it. As well as I will always end our podcast with this. The more responsibilities and the more staple expenses that you put on yourself, you're under somebody's thumb. You have to work this month to pay for next month.
Yeah.
And you have to work next month to pay for the next month. The goal is to get ahead. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Financial Dad podcast. And I always kind of throws, you'll be surprised how many people are going through the same thing. My time with Superhuman Fathers, I was on Zooms with 200 guys, and it was crazy how many men were going through these same exact issues, and we all think that we're alone, and we're not, especially as dads. But if you have a question or just a story that you want us to touch on, you can email us at financialdadpodcast@gmail.com. You can also, of course, subscribe to the YouTube channel at Financial Dad and hit us up on Instagram at Financial Dad Podcast. Thank you guys, and look forward to the next episode.
Thank you.